Dog won't stop barking at parade float. Police arrive and discover a bomb just in time. Max's ears perked up before Sarah Collins could process what was wrong. 6 years of partnership had taught her to trust those subtle signals, the slight tension in his muscular frame, the way his nose twitched as he caught a scent that shouldn't be there. The July sun beat down on Atlanta's asphalt as they conducted their routine sweep of the Independence Day parade floats. But there was nothing routine about Max's behavior now. "Something's not right," Sarah muttered, adjusting her tactical belt. The parade was scheduled to start in less than an hour, and the street was already filling with excited spectators. Children waved small American flags, while parents jostled for the best viewing spots along Peachtree Street. Max moved with purpose toward a patriotic float decorated with oversized eagles and stars. The vehicle belonged to the Montgomery Foundation, one of Atlanta's most prestigious charitable organizations. Sarah had seen its CEO, Charles Montgomery, cutting ribbons and giving speeches at countless city events. The float's metallic paint sparkled under the morning sun, but Max's attention was fixed on its base. "Clear the area," Officer Jenkins called from behind them. "We need to get these floats moving into position." Sarah raised her hand, signaling for silence. Max's behavior had shifted from alert to urgent. His bark echoed against the downtown buildings, sharp, insistent, unmistakable. This wasn't anxiety about the crowds or reaction to the heat. This was a warning. "Max, show me," Sarah commanded softly. The Belgian Malinois moved precisely to a spot near the float's wheel well, his dark eyes never leaving the point of interest. Sarah had seen this focus before, during drug busts at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, when tracking armed suspects through Georgia's woods, and most recently, while uncovering evidence that brought down a serial killer last winter. "Collins, we're on a schedule here," Jenkins pressed. "That dog's probably just nervous about all the commotion." Sarah ignored him, kneeling beside Max to examine the area. Her partner's training was impeccable. If he indicated a threat, there was a threat. The float's decorative panels concealed its structural framework, but something about the wheel well's alignment seemed off. "I need EOD here now," Sarah radioed, her voice calm but authoritative. "And start a quiet evacuation of the immediate area. No sirens, no panic." "EOD? Come on, Collins, it's a parade float, not a—" Max's growl cut through Jenkins' protest. Sarah had already pulled out her tactical flashlight, examining the seams of the panel. There, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for, fresh scratch marks on the mounting brackets. The explosive ordnance disposal team arrived within minutes, their expertise confirming what Max had already known. C4, professionally mounted, with enough explosive power to turn the celebration into a massacre, but the detonator was missing, suggesting this was just one piece of a larger plan. As the bomb squad worked to secure the device, Sarah knelt beside Max, scratching behind his ears, his favorite spot. "Good boy," she whispered, her voice thick with pride and relief. "You just saved a lot of lives, partner." Detective Rodriguez approached, his face grim. "The float's registered to Montgomery's Foundation. All their paperwork's clean, permits, insurance, everything filed weeks in advance." "Too clean?" Sarah asked, reading his tone. "Like it was designed to withstand scrutiny." Rodriguez handed her a tablet showing the Foundation's records. "But here's what's interesting. They've been involved in every major city celebration for the past year, always with elaborate floats, always in crowded areas." Sarah felt Max tense beside her. He'd caught another scent. This isn't over, she realized, watching her partner's behavior. The missing detonator, the perfect paper trail. This is just the beginning. She stood, checking her sidearm and radio. The sun continued to climb over Atlanta's skyline, but the excitement of the morning had been replaced by something darker. Somewhere in the city, someone had planned to turn Independence Day into a tragedy. And judging by the sophistication of the explosive device, they wouldn't give up easily. "What's our next move?" Rodriguez asked. Sarah watched Max, already alert and ready for action. The bond between them had been forged through countless operations, each one building the trust and understanding that made them one of Atlanta PD's most effective teams. Now, that partnership would be tested again. "We follow the evidence," she said, clipping Max's tactical lead to his harness, "and we find out who's really behind the Montgomery Foundation's generous civic spirit." Max's posture shifted subtly, detection mode to tracking. Sarah recognized the change immediately. He'd caught something promising, a scent that could lead them to answers. As they moved away from the parade route, Sarah's mind was already racing through the implications. Someone with resources, influence, and a detailed understanding of city events had nearly turned a celebration into a bloodbath. The only question was why. Behind them, the bomb squad continued their careful work, the morning sun glinting off the float's patriotic decorations. But Sarah's focus was forward, following her partner's lead. Max had never failed her, and she knew in her bones that he never would. Whatever they were about to uncover, they would face it together. The city of Atlanta sprawled around them, its streets gradually filling with citizens, unaware of how close they'd come to disaster. Sarah checked her watch. 9:47 a.m. The day was still young, and somewhere out there, a killer was realizing their plan had failed. Max paused at an intersection, his nose working the air currents. Sarah recognized his change in behavior. He'd found something significant. As they prepared to follow this new lead, she couldn't shake the feeling that this case would test their partnership in ways they'd never experienced before. But that was a concern for later. Right now, they had a job to do, and judging by Max's intensity, they were already on the right track. The Montgomery Foundation's headquarters gleamed in the afternoon sun. Sarah Collins studied the building from her unmarked vehicle, counting cameras and noting employee movements. In the back seat, Max remained still, but alert, his ears pricked forward. "Third black SUV in the last hour," Detective Rodriguez noted from the passenger seat. "All with military-grade window tinting." "Not exactly standard issue for a charitable foundation," Sarah replied, watching another suited figure conduct a practiced security sweep. Max's low growl confirmed her suspicions. These weren't typical non-profit employees. The sun dipped behind the city's towers as Sarah led Max toward the service entrance. Their warrant was still hours away, but probable cause from the parade float gave them authority for initial investigations. The security guard's hand trembled as he logged them in, his eyes never leaving Max. "Just a routine follow-up," Sarah assured him. Max's posture shifted subtly. He'd sensed the guard's anxiety too. Years of partnership had taught Sarah to read her partner perfectly. The Foundation's offices occupied 3 floors, walls adorned with photos of charity events. Everything looked immaculate, organized, perfect, too perfect. Max moved purposefully through the maze of cubicles, his nose working overtime. He stopped at a filing cabinet, pawing at its base with unmistakable urgency. Sarah knelt beside him, running her flashlight along the floor. There, almost invisible unless you were looking for it, scuff marks indicating recent movement. "Good boy," she whispered, pulling on her gloves. The cabinet slid aside silently, revealing a secondary door with a keypad lock. Before Sarah could radio Rodriguez, Max's posture changed dramatically. His hackles rose as he positioned himself between Sarah and the approaching threat. "Police! Don't move!" Sarah commanded, drawing her weapon as she spun around. 2 attackers emerged from behind cubicle walls, moving with military precision. Sarah blocked the first man's strike, but his partner was already closing in. Max launched into action without hesitation. His training kicked in as he tackled the second attacker, giving Sarah the crucial seconds she needed. The sound of their struggle echoed through the empty office space. "Rodriguez, we need backup!" Sarah called into her radio, receiving only static. Signal jammers, professional ones. These weren't ordinary security guards. A third attacker appeared at the far door, weapon drawn. Max released his hold and darted through the cubicles, a black blur of focused aggression. The gunman managed one shot, wide, hitting a desk, before Max took him down. Sarah secured the conscious attackers while Max stood guard. Their tactics, equipment and movements all screamed specialized training. "Check the rest of the floor," she ordered. Max moved methodically through the office, returning with clear confidence that no other threats remained. Rodriguez and backup arrived to find Sarah collecting shell casings while Max kept watch over the zip-tied suspects. The keypad lock yielded to the EOD team's expertise, revealing a room filled with servers and surveillance monitors. Live feeds showed various locations around Atlanta, all major public gathering spots. "They were scouting targets," Rodriguez said, scanning through files. "The parade float was just a test run." Sarah watched Max investigate a stack of boxes in the corner. His behavior shifted from alert to intensely focused, the same change she'd seen at the parade. Inside the boxes they found more C4, identical to the parade float device. "Atlanta police, freeze!" The shout came from the hallway, followed by running footsteps. Max was moving before Sarah could give the command, bolting through the door. A figure in an expensive suit disappeared around the corner, heading for the executive elevator. "Stop!" Sarah commanded, but the elevator doors were already closing. She caught a glimpse of the man's face, Charles Montgomery himself, his usual polished appearance replaced by panic. Max barked sharply, drawing Sarah's attention to the stairwell. He'd already picked up Montgomery's scent. They burst into the stairwell together, their footsteps echoing as they descended. 6 years of partnership had honed their pursuit tactics. The parking garage was dark, filled with shadows. Sarah moved cautiously, aware that Montgomery could be armed. Max froze suddenly, his attention fixed on a particular vehicle, another black SUV. A car engine roared to life, headlights blazing. Sarah shielded her eyes as the SUV accelerated toward them. Max reacted instantly, pulling Sarah behind a concrete pillar as the vehicle screamed past. "All units, black Suburban heading out of Montgomery Foundation garage," Sarah radioed. "Suspect is armed and dangerous." Max was already moving again, leading her to what Montgomery had dropped, a laptop, its screen cracked but functional. On its display, a map of Atlanta glowed ominously, multiple locations marked in red. "Send another bomb squad to these coordinates," Sarah ordered into her radio, "and get me everything we have on Montgomery's recent activities." She knelt beside Max, checking him for injuries from the earlier fight. He licked her hand once, his way of saying he was fine. Their bond had been forged through countless operations. Rodriguez approached with a tablet. "You need to see this," he said grimly. "His foundation has been involved in every major city celebration for the past year, always with elaborate floats, always in crowded areas." Sarah studied the pattern while Max kept watch. The pieces were starting to fit together, forming a picture more disturbing than she'd imagined. Montgomery hadn't just been planning a single attack. He'd been conducting dry runs, testing security responses. "Get me everything on his known associates," Sarah said, scratching Max's ear. "Whatever he's planning, it's bigger than we thought." Max's ears perked up suddenly, his attention drawn to a distant sound. Sarah had learned to trust these warnings. Something was coming. She could feel it in the tension of his body, in the way his eyes fixed on the garage entrance. Somewhere in Atlanta, Charles Montgomery was implementing a plan years in the making, and judging by what they'd discovered, this was just the beginning. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel as she and Max raced through Atlanta's streets. The memory hit her with startling clarity. Another night, another chase, 6 years ago. Her first case with Max, when they were both still proving themselves to the department. "You remember that warehouse downtown, don't you, boy?" she said softly. Max's ears twitched in the back seat, recognizing something in her tone. That case had forged their partnership, taught them to trust each other's instincts without question. Her radio crackled. "Suspect's vehicle spotted heading east on Ponce," Rodriguez reported. "Streets are too crowded for pursuit. We'll try to track him through traffic cams." Sarah turned down a side street, muscle memory guiding her through shortcuts she'd learned over years of patrol. "Track his most likely destination," she ordered. "Montgomery's not running blind. He has a plan." The warehouse district loomed ahead, its abandoned buildings casting long shadows in the fading light. It was here, all those years ago, that she and Max had discovered their first major case, a drug lab masquerading as a storage facility. Max had caught a scent that other K9 units had missed, leading them to hidden evidence that brought down an entire trafficking ring. Max suddenly sat up straighter, nose working the air coming through the cracked window. Sarah had learned to trust that reaction. "What is it, boy? Something familiar?" She slowed the car, letting Max guide her. He led them past empty loading docks and chain-link fences until, there, the old Chemical Solutions building. 6 years ago, it had been a front for drug manufacturing. Now it stood abandoned, its windows dark, except for one faint light on the second floor. "Rodriguez," Sarah radioed, "run a property check on 1879 Marietta Street, the old Chemical Solutions building." A few moments passed before his response. "Listed as city property, scheduled for demolition next month. But here's something interesting. The demolition contract was just awarded to a subsidiary of Montgomery Construction." Sarah killed the engine, studying the building. "Same place we found that meth lab 6 years ago, the one connected to City Hall." "You think there's a connection?" "Max does." She watched her partner's focused attention on the building. "And that's good enough for me." They approached cautiously, Sarah's flashlight beam cutting through shadows. Max moved with practiced stealth, his black fur blending with the darkness. The side door's lock had been recently broken. Inside, the building smelled of mildew and abandonment. Their footsteps echoed on concrete floors, still stained with chemical spills from years ago. Max led them up a metal staircase, each step carefully placed to minimize noise. The second floor was different. Fresh boot prints in the dust, the faint smell of cigarette smoke. And there, voices from behind a closed office door. Sarah pressed close to the wall, listening. 2 men arguing in hushed tones, getting sloppy. "The K9 unit wasn't supposed to be there today." "It doesn't matter. By the time they figure it out, the primary phase will be complete." Sarah's blood ran cold. She recognized the second voice, Charles Montgomery. Max tensed beside her, a low growl building in his throat. Sarah placed a calming hand on his neck, feeling the tight muscles there. They needed to hear more. "The councilman is getting nervous," the first voice continued. "Says the construction contracts are too obvious." Montgomery laughed softly. "By tomorrow night, no one will be looking at construction contracts. They'll be too busy dealing with the chaos. Just like last time." Last time. Sarah's mind raced back 6 years to the case that made her and Max's reputation. The drug lab had been just the surface. Their investigation had uncovered a web of corruption reaching into city government. Construction contracts awarded to clean up accidents that turned out to be deliberately staged. Now the pattern was repeating, but on a much larger scale. A phone rang inside the office. "The team's in position," Montgomery said after answering. "Start the next phase." Sarah had heard enough. She keyed her radio twice, their signal to Rodriguez that they needed backup, but before she could move, Max's head snapped toward the far end of the hall. More footsteps. They were about to have company. Sarah pulled back into a shadowed doorway. Max pressed against her legs. 3 armed men moved past their position, heading for the office. Through their professional stance and coordinated movements, she recognized the same training as the attackers from the Foundation. "Sir!" one of them called through the door. "We found their vehicle." The office door opened. Sarah caught a glimpse of Montgomery's face in the dim light. He looked different now, harder, colder, all pretense of the charitable businessman stripped away. "Find them," he ordered. "No witnesses this time. We're too close to let some cop and her dog ruin everything." The men moved out with military precision, splitting up to search the floor. Sarah counted weapons, automatic rifles, tactical gear, the kind of equipment that spoke of serious resources and planning. 6 years ago, she and Max had brought down a corrupt network by trusting each other's instincts. Now they were trapped in the same building, facing an enemy that had learned from past mistakes. Montgomery wasn't just planning attacks. He was recreating his old scheme on a massive scale, using terror to manipulate construction contracts worth millions. Sarah looked down at Max, saw the same determination in his eyes that had helped them survive that first case. They had backup coming, but right now they were on their own. "Ready, partner?" she whispered. Max's muscles tensed in response. Whatever came next, they would face it together, just like they had 6 years ago when a rookie K9 officer and her new partner had first learned to trust each other with their lives. The sound of footsteps grew closer. Sarah drew her weapon and Max prepared to spring. The past had come full circle, bringing them back to where their partnership began. But this time the stakes were even higher, and somewhere in Atlanta, a clock was ticking down to Montgomery's next move. The first bullet hit the wall inches from Sarah's head. Max was already moving, a blur of dark fur in the dim hallway. His training kicked in as he tackled the nearest gunman, giving Sarah the split second she needed to dive behind a concrete pillar. "Contact on second floor!" Montgomery's men shouted. "K9 unit!" Sarah fired back, forcing them to take cover. Max stayed low, using the shadows to his advantage as he circled behind their attackers. 6 years of working together had taught them how to move as one, even when separated. "Asset protection teams, move in!" crackled a radio. "Secure the package!" Through the chaos, Sarah caught a glimpse of Montgomery slipping away through a side door. Max saw it too. His head snapped toward the movement, but another burst of gunfire kept him pinned down. "Rodriguez, we need backup at Chemical Solutions," Sarah radioed, ducking as more bullets chipped away at her cover. "Multiple armed suspects, automatic weapons. Montgomery is on site." Static answered, the same signal jammers from the Foundation office. They were on their own. Max's warning growl came just in time. Sarah rolled as a flashbang grenade bounced near her position. The explosion lit up the hallway, but she was already moving. Max used the distraction to take down another gunman, his attack swift and precise. "The dog! Watch the damn dog!" Sarah smiled grimly. They always underestimated Max, treated him like just another K9 unit. That mistake had cost dozens of criminals their freedom over the years. A sharp yelp cut through the gunfire. Sarah's heart stopped as she saw Max stumble, blood matting his fur. He'd taken a grazing shot to his shoulder while protecting her flank. "Max, cover!" she commanded. Her partner obeyed instantly, limping to her position. The wound wasn't deep, but seeing him hurt triggered something primal in Sarah's chest. These men had just made their last mistake. She grabbed a smoke grenade from her tactical vest, standard issue for K9 officers dealing with riot situations. The canister rolled down the hallway, quickly filling the space with thick white smoke. "Night vision!" someone shouted. "They're going for—" Max was already moving through the smoke, using scent and training to navigate. Sarah heard the sounds of struggle, followed by the clatter of expensive tactical gear hitting the floor. She pushed forward, trusting Max to guard her blind spots even while injured. 4 suspects down, but Montgomery was getting away. "Stay with me, boy," Sarah whispered, checking Max's wound quickly. The bullet had only grazed him, but she could see the pain in his movement. Standard procedure said to withdraw, get him medical attention. Max met her eyes, and she saw the same determination there that had marked every major case they'd worked together. He wasn't quitting. Not now. Not with so many lives at stake. "Rodriguez, if you can hear this, Montgomery's heading east through the building. Multiple explosives confirmed at target locations around the city. We need EOD teams deployed now." They followed Montgomery's trail through a maze of old offices and storage rooms. Max's injury slowed them down, but couldn't stop his tracking ability. Blood drops on the floor told Sarah she wasn't the only one who'd been hit in the firefight. The trail led them to a large processing area. Old chemical vats cast strange shadows in the emergency lighting. Max's hackles rose. Someone was waiting for them. "Detective Collins." Montgomery's voice echoed through the space. "I've read your file. Impressive career. You and your partner have quite a reputation." "It's over, Montgomery. We found the evidence at your foundation. The bomb squads are already moving to your target locations." A chuckle. "You think those were the real targets? The parade float, the mapped locations, all distractions. The real devices are already in place. Has been for months, buried in construction sites all over the city, my construction sites." Sarah moved carefully between the vats, Max limping beside her. The same plan as 6 years ago: create a crisis, then profit from the reconstruction contracts. On a much larger scale, the drug lab you discovered was a prototype. A test run to see how the system worked. This time, the contracts will be worth billions. A shadow moved on the catwalk above. Sarah raised her weapon, but Montgomery was already gone. You have a choice, detective. Chase me or save your partner. He's losing blood, and the nearest vet is across town. How long can a dog with a bullet wound keep going? Max growled, pushing through his pain to stay alert. But Sarah could see his injury taking its toll. Every movement cost him more energy. Or maybe you'd prefer to focus on the bombs. 11 devices scattered throughout Atlanta's infrastructure. The timer started when you entered the building. Think you can find them all in time? Sarah's mind raced. Montgomery was trying to split her focus, force her to choose between saving Max, stopping the bombs, or catching him. He didn't understand. After 6 years together, Sarah and Max weren't just partners. They were a team. Rodriguez, she tried the radio again. This time, a burst of static answered. The jammers were weakening. Zero in on construction sites connected to Montgomery, anywhere his company has done infrastructure work in the last year. Max's ears suddenly pricked forward. Despite his injury, his body tensed with renewed purpose. He'd caught a scent. Sarah smiled. Montgomery had made a critical mistake. He thought Max was weakened, slowed by his wound. But her partner had something the billionaire couldn't understand, a reason to keep fighting that went beyond money or power. "One last thing, Montgomery," Sarah called out. "You really should have researched K9 units better. We don't quit, we don't give up, and we never leave our partners behind." Max barked once, a sound Sarah recognized. He had Montgomery's location. The chase was on, and this time they both had scores to settle. Max led them up metal stairs to the factory's upper level, pushing through his injury with each step. Sarah followed close behind, trusting her partner's tracking skills, even as she worried about his wound. The blood on his shoulder had mostly clotted, but his movements were becoming more labored. "Police units converging on your location." Rodriguez's voice finally broke through the weakening signal jammers. "Bomb squads identified 3 devices so far, all underneath recent Montgomery construction projects." "He's rigged the whole city," Sarah replied quietly. "Using construction contracts to plant explosives. We need locations for every project his company worked on." A door slammed somewhere ahead. Max's ears snapped forward, his body tensing despite the pain. Sarah recognized his alert posture. Montgomery was close. They emerged onto a series of catwalks suspended above the main factory floor. The space was massive, filled with shadows and rusted equipment, perfect territory for an ambush. "Impressive determination," Montgomery's voice echoed from above, "but futile. Even if you catch me, you'll never find all the devices in time. The city's redevelopment committee meets in 1 hour to approve the next phase of construction contracts. When the explosions start, guess who'll be awarded the emergency reconstruction work?" "This was never about terrorism," Sarah called back, moving carefully along the catwalk. Max stayed close, compensating for his injured side. The bombs, the parade float, all just theater to justify billions in contracts. The business world runs on manufactured crises, detective. I just perfected the formula. Max suddenly stiffened, his nose working overtime. Sarah had seen this behavior before. He'd caught multiple scents. They weren't alone up here. "Your partner's hurt," Montgomery taunted. "How much longer can he keep going? Stand down, detective. Walk away. There's still time to get him medical attention." Sarah checked her watch. 50 minutes until the committee meeting. Somewhere in the city, Rodriguez and the bomb squad were racing to find the hidden devices. Up here in the dark, it was just her, Max, and a killer willing to destroy a city for profit. "You really don't understand K9 units, do you?" Sarah kept her voice steady, moving into position as Max tracked their quarry's location. "We don't quit. Not ever. Especially not when someone hurts our partner. Admirable loyalty. My men have the same training. Speaking of which, multiple figures emerged from the shadows, weapons raised. Sarah recognized their tactical gear, more of Montgomery's private security team. They moved with military precision, cutting off escape routes. Max's growl deepened. Despite his injury, his focus never wavered. Sarah felt the familiar connection between them, the silent communication built over years of trusting each other's instincts. "Final warning," Montgomery called, "although I doubt you'll take it. That's the problem with loyal dogs. They don't know when to let go." Sarah smiled grimly. "You're right about one thing. We don't let go." Max exploded into action, launching himself at the nearest attacker despite his wound. Sarah rolled behind a support beam as gunfire erupted. The catwalk rang with the sound of bullets hitting metal. Through the chaos, Sarah caught glimpses of Max's strategic movement. Even injured, he used the shadows and tight spaces to his advantage, keeping Montgomery's men off balance. They were trained for human opponents. A wounded K-9 unit still threw them into confusion. "Asset compromised," one of them shouted. "We've lost visual on the target." Sarah used the distraction to take down 2 more guards. Max had disappeared into the darkness above, but she could track his progress by the shouts of surprise and pain. "The bombs activate in 40 minutes. Montgomery's voice carried an edge of desperation now. "You're running out of time, Detective." A sharp bark from Max, their signal. Sarah looked up to see Montgomery himself, silhouetted against the factory's skylights. He held something in his hand, a detonator. "Stay back," he warned. "One press, and the devices activate early. How many civilians die then?" Max emerged from the shadows behind Montgomery, moving silently despite his injury. Sarah kept her weapon trained on the target, drawing his attention. "The committee meeting," she said. "You needed them all in one place when the bombs went off. Maximum impact, maximum contracts. A new Atlanta, built from the ashes of the old. My company handling every reconstruction project. Billions in contracts, all awarded without question in the wake of a terrorist attack. Just like 6 years ago with the drug lab. Create the problem, then profit from the solution." Montgomery's laugh echoed through the factory. "The drug lab was a test run, a proof of concept. This is the real game, and this is checkmate." Max struck before Montgomery could react. Years of training took over as he knocked the detonator away, sending it skittering across the catwalk. Sarah was already moving, covering the distance between them in seconds. Montgomery reached for a concealed weapon, but Max was faster. His teeth found the billionaire's arm, bringing him down despite the searing pain in his own shoulder. "Rodriguez," Sarah called into her radio as she secured the suspect. "Target acquired. Tell me you found those bombs." "EOD teams are neutralizing them now. Construction permits gave us the locations. It's over." Sarah knelt beside Max, checking his wound. The excitement had started the bleeding again, but his eyes were clear and focused, still watching Montgomery, still protecting his partner. "Good boy," she whispered, scratching his favorite spot behind his ears. "Let's get you to the vet." Backup arrived to find Sarah sitting with Max on the catwalk, her free hand never leaving his fur while she kept her weapon trained on Montgomery. The bond between them was evident even to the tactical teams, a partnership forged through countless operations, tested by fire and proven once again. As the sun began to rise over Atlanta's skyline, Sarah watched her partner's steady gaze. Even wounded, he had refused to quit. Together, they had saved countless lives and stopped a plot years in the making. But right now, only one thing mattered, getting Max the medical attention he deserved. The city would never know how close it had come to disaster. But Sarah and Max knew, and that was enough. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of Atlanta Police Headquarters as Sarah Collins stood before the assembled press. 2 weeks had passed since the confrontation at the Chemical Solutions building. Beside her, Max sat at perfect attention, his shoulder still bandaged but healing well. The Medal of Valor pinned to his tactical vest caught the light, matching the one on Sarah's uniform. The investigation into the Montgomery Foundation has uncovered what may be the largest corruption scheme in Atlanta's history, Chief Martinez announced from the podium. Thanks to Detective Collins and her K9 partner Max, we've prevented a coordinated terrorist attack designed to manipulate billions in construction contracts. Sarah watched the reporters scribbling notes, thinking about how close the city had come to disaster. The EOD teams had worked through the night, discovering explosive devices planted at 12 major infrastructure points. Each one had been concealed during legitimate construction projects over the past year. "Detective Collins," a reporter called out, "sources say you and Max were first alerted to the threat during the Independence Day parade. Can you tell us about that moment?" Sarah glanced down at her partner. Max's ears were forward, alert as always, but his tail wagged slightly at her attention. "K9 officers learn to trust their partner's instincts," she replied. "Max detected something wrong with one of the parade floats. His warning led us to the first device, which helped us uncover the larger conspiracy. And the injury?" another reporter asked. "We heard Max was shot during the final confrontation." Sarah's hand moved unconsciously to scratch behind Max's ears. "He took a bullet protecting me, then kept going despite the wound. That's the kind of partner he is." The questions continued, but Sarah's mind drifted to the evidence they'd uncovered. Montgomery's scheme had been years in the making. Plant explosives during routine construction, then trigger them during a city council meeting. The ensuing chaos would have guaranteed his companies the emergency reconstruction contracts. "The investigation has led to 37 arrests so far," Chief Martinez continued, "including 3 city council members and several prominent business leaders. The corruption reached deep into Atlanta's infrastructure." A familiar face caught Sarah's attention in the back of the room. Detective Rodriguez gave her a subtle nod. He'd spent the past 2 weeks unraveling Montgomery's network, following the money trail through shell companies and offshore accounts. "Mr. Montgomery himself faces multiple charges," the chief added. "Terrorism, attempted murder of a police officer, conspiracy and corruption. The district attorney is confident in the case." Max's ears suddenly pricked forward. Sarah followed his gaze to see Linda Chen, their favorite veterinarian, slipping into the conference room. She'd worked overtime to treat Max's wound that night, then insisted on daily checkups during his recovery. "One final note," Chief Martinez said, gesturing to Sarah and Max. "The mayor has authorized a special commendation for the K9 unit that broke this case. Detective Collins and Max exemplify the partnership between officer and service dog that makes our K9 program essential to law enforcement." The ceremony that followed was brief. Neither Sarah nor Max enjoyed being in the spotlight, but as the chief pinned the medals to their uniforms, Sarah couldn't help but feel proud, not of herself, but of the partner who had trusted her enough to chase a killer while bleeding from a bullet wound. Later, in their favorite spot behind the precinct, Sarah watched Max enjoying a well-deserved treat. Linda had just finished his final checkup, declaring him fit to return to full duty. "You've got a special one there," Linda said, packing up her medical kit. "Most dogs would have given up after taking a hit like that, but he just kept going." "He's the best partner I could ask for," Sarah replied. She didn't need to explain further. Anyone who had seen them work together understood. Rodriguez joined them, holding a thick file. "Final report on Montgomery's operation," he said. "You were right about the connection to that old drug lab case. He'd been testing his method for years. Create a crisis, then profit from the cleanup. But he got greedy," Sarah added. "Went from drugs to terrorism. Bigger crisis, bigger profits. The DA says he's looking at life without parole. His whole network is coming down. Construction contracts are being reviewed across the state." Max finished his treat and moved to Sarah's side, pressing against her leg in their familiar gesture of partnership. His wound was healing cleanly, the fur already starting to grow back. In a few weeks, there would be no visible sign of how close they'd come to losing everything. "The chief wants you both back on active duty as soon as Max is cleared," Rodriguez continued. "But take your time. You've earned a break." Sarah smiled, watching Max track a squirrel across the precinct lawn. "We'll be ready," she said. "There's always another case waiting." As if understanding her words, Max looked up at her with clear, focused eyes. The same look he'd given her in that dark factory when a bullet wound couldn't stop him from protecting his partner. The sun was setting over Atlanta's skyline, painting the city in shades of gold. Somewhere in a maximum security cell, Charles Montgomery was beginning to understand the true cost of underestimating a K9 unit's dedication. His empire was falling, his conspirators turning on each other in exchange for lighter sentences. But here, in this quiet moment behind the precinct, none of that mattered. Sarah had her partner, healthy and ready for their next challenge. Max had his favorite person and a new medal that would look perfect next to his others. "Ready to head home, boy?" Sarah asked. Max's tail wagged once, decisive. After 6 years together, they barely needed words anymore. Whatever came next, they would face it the same way they'd faced every challenge since their first case together, as partners, as a team, and as the most effective K9 unit in Atlanta's history. Justice had been served, the city was safer, and somewhere another case was waiting for a detective who trusted her dog's instincts and a K9 who would take a bullet to protect his partner. Just another day in the life of Sarah Collins and Max, Atlanta's finest.